Y'all know what it is.
All right, cool. Well, let's keep this going. What's our next step?
Next step is to pull your finger out and start moving towards it. It's like, actually, go out there and do things differently. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome, but the same way. If I do things differently, things cannot remain the same. And I love to invite people to do that in what I call micro shifts, not trying to swallow the whole elephant in one mouthful, just saying, okay, what's one thing that I can do today in how I feel, how I think, or what I do that's going to lead me one step closer to my goal? And a compound effect builds on the back of that. If every day I'm chipping away at who I am, I'm going to reveal the David that's sitting underneath all of that marble, which is my intended outcome. It doesn't have to be big chips. Small chips consistently made are always going to get us to where we want to be.
When I've seen this meme floating around of two ladders, guy trying to climb a ladder. One has small steps, the guy can climb it. The other one it's the same height ladder, but the steps are spaced out, and he can't even reach the very first top one. So it's a very good visual example of how small steps can actually make a difference. And you'll start going up the ladder, but if you can't reach the first rung, you're kind of stuck. And another analogy of that is you think of like a hoarder, for example. He's got this house just completely full of everything he, ever accumulated in his life. He brought each one of those items into his house one at a time. And over a period of time, that house just filled up with nastiness. So it's amazing how little things just done over a period of time can accumulate and how much you can get done. I'm a real fan of just doing small things as you can handle them, and then gradually over time your project will come into view.
Definitely. And sort of just in the spirit of transparency, this is one of the areas that I fall the most short in that I'm notorious for biting off more than I can chew, where I take these giant leaps into projects or whatever. And, and maybe it looks pretty good for a while. Maybe it sustains for a bit. And then, eventually it will become clear that there's actually nothing behind it. It's just this facade or whatever. And so I find that, as it comes to setting goals and things like that, I tend to choose the goal that's just a little bit too far away. And I think if I'm like armchair psychologist here, I would say that that's putting it just far enough out of reach that I don't have to bother actually doing it. And so I think it actually keeps me from making progress, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to talk about this. And you've heard a bunch of people, they use acronyms like SMART and these different things, SMART goal, where you're setting these, small and actionable, time-based goals. And, and I think that there's something to that, and I think it sort of aligns with what you were saying, but it's definitely not the easiest thing to do. I think just like most of these buckets, they fall into the category of easier to say, but more difficult to implement. So I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Ryan, a good example of that is that website project I was working on. I was very guilty of jumping in the deep end of that pool and trying to swim. And I honestly think if I would have kept working at it, the rate and the consistency that I was working at it for the first 2 years, it'd be done by now. If we didn't go down the studio tangent and try and do all that stuff, and I just kept working on it at the rate I was going, it would be done. Just by doing those small steps. And so I think, you can bite off these big goals and try and accomplish something that's tremendous. It's the consistency and the ability to stick to it and do something on a daily basis, no matter how big or how small, that's going to get the project done. And I'm kind of annoyed with myself that it's not done right now. So it's one of those things.
Yeah, no, but I think that's right.
I mean, I talk about something called minimum deliverables, which is what we insert into the micro shifting process. And a minimum deliverable is whatever I can do without resistance. I like to say, push your edge and not your buttons. Go to the edge of what you can do. And if you find any resistance, just take a step back. And even if it's the money, I had one guy, a mate of mine, wasn't even a client, it was a mate of mine I was supporting. And, he wanted to do a project. And I said, step 1, go and buy a journal. What? Yeah, buy a journal. Step 2, put it by your bed. Step 3, open it up. Not even to write anything, open it up. And then just write how you feel about the project, one word. And then start journaling it and uncover what's underneath. And through that process, he built a momentum that actually took life. And now he's done 2 books. He's got his podcast. He's got his YouTube channel. He's got his coaching program, and he's set up. But it came from him just starting to disrupt the path that he was on and build that new momentum towards what he wanted to be with something as simple as buying a journal. Yeah. Seemingly insignificant, but those really seemingly insignificant small steps on the ladder have got him to where he wants to be today.
I saw a training video for someone working out that the trainer was like, yeah, like whenever I take on a new client, I don't ask them to, let's do the most amount of push-ups you can do, you can do 50. Why don't you do 50? He says, I have them stop at 30 so that the next day they can do 35 more. And the next day they can do 35 more. If I make them do 50, then tomorrow all they can do is 10, and they're burnt out and they're tired and they can't progress. Whereas if I have them do, 35 in a week, they've done, 200, 300 push-ups. Whereas if they would max out every day, they wouldn't be able to do the same amount of reps the next day, and consistency, to grow. And so I think that, don't do, a 12-hour shift trying to get everything done in one thing. Segment it, do the small bits here and there, and over a while you'll get a lot done. So
definitely. Microshift is a consistent series of baby steps made in the direction of a consciously chosen outcome. That's how I define it. Consistent series of baby steps made in the direction of a consciously chosen outcome. If you do that, you will always get to where you want to get to.